Hey everybody, it's time to round up everything that happened with Green Lantern in the month of June 2022. But before we get to that, I want to point everyone to my previous video all about the line of Power Rangers comics published by Boom Studios. I've said before that I was going to start occasionally doing videos about other comics, and this is the beginning of that. It's all about my experience as a kid who got in on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers television show the very day it first premiered, only to gradually grow out of the franchise and then rediscover it in a powerful way as an adult through these comics. I'm really proud of that video, and those comics are excellent, so please watch it if you haven't. Now, on to Green Lantern. Sojourner Malene has an 8-page story in the DC Pride 2022 anthology, and they went with a noir detective story done in black and white and grayscale, with only touches of green until the very end, where the world fills with color for a specific narrative reason. Just from a technical standpoint, I love this. Ever since DC did their anthology series Harley Quinn Black, White, Red, and then Marvel copied it for books about Wolverine and Moon Knight, I've wanted to see something similar done with Green Lantern. And here it is! The story takes Joe back to the city Enduring, and very lightly explores the fact that everyone is trying to deal with experiencing emotions for the first time in their lives, which is leading to problems. For the purposes of this story, it's a pair of emotionally immature people who don't understand the nature of love and attraction, embracing some really shitty stereotypes about what it means to be bisexual, so Joe justifiably blows up their apartment in an explosion of color that hits extra hard since the use of green has been so restrained up until that point. It's a really cool story that may or may not be canon to Far Sector, but either way, I think it makes for a really nice epilogue to that series. So, Dark Crisis number 1 is here. The Justice League is believed to be dead, the heroes are scrambling to pick up their slack, and the villains are starting to organize and make some bold moves. Hal Jordan heads to the Hall of Justice with John Kent and Wally West and listens to what Black Adam has to say about the death of the Justice League. Hal doesn't trust a word Black Adam says, so he decides to investigate personally. Wally agrees to go look for Barry while Hal goes off to find whoever supposedly killed the League. The flashback to the death of the Justice League gets John Stewart wrong again. Justice League number 75 was wrong to portray John in his all-green powered-up form that he only held for a brief time during the final battle on Oa, and now Dark Crisis number 1 is wrong to portray John in his regular Green Lantern costume with a working ring. Maybe it's a mistake, maybe it's them wanting to go with the most well-known version of John. Since this is a big event, they'll get tons of readers who have no idea what's been going on in Green Lantern. I don't know. Either way, there is no good answer. Hal and Barry take off, and that leaves John Kent to try and assemble a new Justice League to fill the void left by his dad's generation. And John ended up with a really weird mix of members. And honestly, I kinda like it. Weird teams are the best teams, and I'm legitimately glad to see some of these characters. That said, I don't expect this team to last. The first issue of the story is leaning pretty hard into the idea that John isn't going to succeed just by trying to fill his father's shoes. That it's not as simple as putting on a costume and then standing next to a bunch of other costumed people. I have a feeling we are going to see John and his generation succeed. But first, this attempt at a new league will have to fail, only for John and Yara and Jackson and Jace and Sojourner to rise up together. Not out of some desire to fill a void or take up a mantle, but as the natural result of stepping up when they're needed. Or Joe could stay in space punching manhunters, whichever. The art in this book looks great, and I actually really like the way they deploy text for sound effects and location changes. The text is interacting with the physical world in some fun ways, and even changes perspective with different camera angles, which is a very nice touch. What I really don't like is how this issue seems to invalidate 2 issues that led into this event. Everything I thought that was original content in Dark Crisis number 0 was actually just pages taken from Dark Crisis number 1, which in retrospect makes that issue feel incredibly cheap and disappointing. And then there's the fact that when Hal Jordan shows up, he doesn't seem to know what happened to the Justice League. He starts talking to Superman and Flash, and then seems surprised to realize it's John Kent and Wally West, and then asks where the Justice League is. And none of this feels right for a character who just found out his friends on the League died during his conversation with the Jackson Hyde Aquaman back in last month's Road to Dark Crisis. Don't get me wrong, I like it when an event is structured so that you can just focus on the main miniseries without having to go to tie-ins for essential information. But those tie-ins still need to be high quality and rewarding for anyone who chooses to buy and read them. And in this case, it feels like both Dark Crisis number 0 and Road to Dark Crisis were a complete waste of time. Batman Superman World's Finest number 4 features a mind-controlled Hal Jordan sent to battle Superman and Batman. The fight culminates with a nice moment where Bruce and Clark realize that if Hal is under someone else's control, that likely means his willpower has been compromised, which means that their combined willpower has a chance of taking control of Hal's ring. So there they are, one thought between them, pooling their willpower to take the ring from Hal. And it's worth mentioning that the only thing protecting the two of them while they do this is the Philosopher's Stone Batman is holding, which has the ability to alchemically transmute matter into different states. But the stress of resisting Hal's attack is causing the stone to break. So all of this, Clark and Bruce being of one mind and one will, the bursting Philosopher's Stone, the surge of willpower from Hal's ring, it all resulted in Superman and Batman merging into one being, almost exactly like a Dragon Ball Z fusion, right down to the time limit. I actually really like the idea that once the ring runs out of power, the fusion separates. It's a nice way to interpret that mechanic. I've seen people get upset about all this because it's not how the ring works, but that's honestly missing the point, because this isn't something the ring did. The ring played a part, sure, but most of the heavy lifting was done by the Philosopher's Stone, which again exists to transmute things into new forms. The ring likely provided the extra power necessary to do it, and Bruce and Clark only synced up with each other because they needed to connect with the ring, which was a key factor in the fusion happening at all. Basically, these characters were able to accidentally fuse because a handful of random factors just happened to line up exactly right. And it's by no means the weirdest thing that a Green Lantern ring has ever been involved with. Multiversity Teen Justice number 1 came out, and if you watched my video about the Lanterns of Earth 11, you'll know that this version of the DC Universe has a lot of untapped potential, mostly due to it never being given consistent long-term focus to really flesh out its characters and concepts. This is a world where, to put it very broadly, gender roles are reversed, but there's been no consistency to what that means. Sometimes it means that male characters are reimagined as female, like with the Earth 11 version of Kyle Rayner being Kylie Rayner. Other times it means existing female characters are simply elevated to the status of the main hero, like Star Sapphire Carol Ferris being the main Lantern of Earth and member of the Justice Guild. So the fact that we finally have a miniseries exclusively set on Earth 11, focusing entirely on Earth 11 characters, is exciting to me because this is the best chance this world has ever had to become better defined and explored and developed. And in the middle of all of that, I got a pretty big surprise when 2 more Green Lanterns showed up. A female version of Kilowog and a female version of Sinestro named Sinestra. I never expected this, because the last time we checked in on Earth 11, Grant Morrison had reimagined the Green Lantern Corps as a fairly toxic fraternity, and the biological sex of all the characters seemed to be unchanged from their main universe counterparts. And based on Solicitations, we know that Hal Ferris will be appearing in a future issue, so Grant Morrison's version of the Earth 11 Green Lantern Corps is still in play, so I'm really not sure how all of this is supposed to fit together, though it does open the door for Kylie Rayner to still exist, which I'm pretty happy about. They just really need to clearly define how and why a Corps that was formed out of a sense of resentment and spite towards women would have multiple female members. But hopefully, the presence of Kilowog and Sinestra in this story means that there is an answer, and we'll be finding out shortly. However, there is one potential problem. This isn't actually the first time we've seen a female version of Sinestro named Sinestra with this same character design. Back in 2012, DC started their Ame-Comi brand, which is a line of comics based on a series of statues depicting female DC characters reinterpreted through an anime art style. And eventually, those comics introduced Sinestra, who wielded a yellow ring and ended up playing a key antagonistic role in that world's version of Blackest Night. To my knowledge, that's the only time a female Sinestro has appeared before Teen Justice number 1, and the fact that these two are so similar makes me wonder if her inclusion in the story isn't another in the very long line of mistakes that have been made every time a new creative team tells stories set on Earth 11. It's possible that the people responsible for making this book found out about Sinestra and thought she was the Earth 11 Sinestro, not realizing that she was a character from Ame-Comi, or just not realizing that Ame-Comi and Earth 11 are two entirely different things. But that's just me speculating, I don't know. But it would be tragically funny if it ended up being true in the book that had the best chance of clearing up mistakes like this. Either way, I'm seeing this miniseries through till the end, so I'll let you know how it turns out. In Swamp Thing number 14, Hal Jordan needs help from the newest avatar of the Green to stop an invasion of alien plants that have been amassing around the Earth. The whole thing takes a typical sci-fi trope and injects some psychedelic nature imagery that just proves to me I just need to go back and read this entire series. If you're looking for your Hal Jordan fix, between Dark Crisis and this, they've got you covered. Kyle Rayner and Jessica Cruz get the spotlight on a pair of variant covers celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. Kyle is on the cover of Titans United Blood Pact number 1, and Jessica is on the cover of Jurassic League number 5. It should be noted that these are just variant covers, and those characters most likely won't be appearing in the issues themselves. Speaking of covers, Jon Stewart appears on the cover of Bruce Wayne Not Super, a middle-grade original graphic novel that reimagines the heroes and villains of the DC universe as school kids, with Bruce trying to find his way while being the only non-powered person in a school filled with future superheroes. The premise has a very strong My Hero Academia vibe, so hopefully it turns out to be something that its intended audience can appreciate. Convention season is upon us, and Funko is bringing out some exclusives. First, it was leaked that the New York Comic Con will have an exclusive Star Sapphire pop. This wasn't an official announcement, so we haven't actually seen what it'll look like, and we don't yet know if any retailers will be carrying it in conjunction with the convention. Secondly, there will be a Larfleeze Funko Soda for San Diego Comic-Con. There's a Chase variant that glows in the dark and features Larfleeze holding his power battery. Again, we'll have to keep an eye out for the actual availability of these figures, since con exclusivity rarely means you can only get them at the convention itself. XM Studios is making another Green Lantern statue, and this time it's a quarter-scale Dawnbreaker. It's a really good-looking sculpt with multiple face options and an incredible-looking construct base, and I really like the way it connects back to the ring through a fiery energy trail. I understand the benefits that come from the character's ties to the Batman franchise, but it still feels weird to see Dawnbreaker continue to get new statues so long after Dark Knight's Metal. I haven't seen a price yet, but it's definitely going to be several $1,000s, so hopefully someone out there is a Dawnbreaker fan with deep enough pockets to enjoy this one. Well, the Prime 1 statues we saw announced a little while ago are finally up for pre-order, and it's actually more irritating than I expected. Between their size and the complexity of their designs, I knew going in that each statue would be tremendously expensive. But what I didn't count on was that there would be multiple versions. If you just want Hal Jordan, it'll cost you $1,839.99, before tax, of course. But if you want Hal Jordan and Badge, that's $1,974.99. And it's not like this approach is anything new. Figure and statue manufacturers do this all the time. What gets me is that it's only a difference of $135, which, yeah, is a lot of money by itself, but in the perspective of this overall purchase, it doesn't seem like a big enough difference to warrant two versions. Why even offer a version without Badge? The whole point of a cheaper version is to incentivize more people to make the purchase, but who's going to look at an $1,800 price tag as being more reasonable than $1,900? They're too close. Also, I love how this Badge figure looks, but no way is it worth $135. Sinestro's in the same boat, with his regular version being priced at $1,884.99 and his quote-unquote deluxe version priced at $1,999.99. And the only difference between these two versions is that the more expensive one comes with 2 extra heads you can swap out, which is actually a terrible deal when you consider the fact that the Hal statue also had alternate heads, but even the cheaper version of Hal came with them included. Honestly, the best overall value for one of these statues is Tri-Eye. He's a 1/3 scale, standing at almost 2 feet tall, priced at $704.99, with no extra parts or versions to worry about. Yes, he's only about half the size of Hal and Sinestro, and yes, $700 is still way too much. But by comparison, he's the only statue in this set that's anywhere even close to reasonable. Once again, we've got a lot of Green Lantern appearances coming up in DC's September Solicitations. Hal Jordan's struggle to get to the bottom of what's going on in Dark Crisis continues in Dark Crisis number 4 and The Flash number 786. The 3 founding members of Young Justice are fighting against their own fantasy world prison, including Kyle Rayner's Morrison-era JLA, in the pages of Dark Crisis Young Justice number 4. Kyle Rayner and Sinestro team up to defend Korugar from the forces of zombie Darkseid in DC's War of the Undead Gods number 2. Hal and the Silver Age Justice League make an appearance in Superman Space Age number 2, and we finally get to see the Green Lantern's giant robot in DC Mech number 3. So keep an eye out for any of those that sound interesting to you. I personally can't wait for Deceased. So that's the Green Lantern Roundup for June 2022. If you have something to say about any of these topics, or if there's anything you think I missed, let's keep the conversation going in the comments section down below. You can usually find me reacting to these developments in real time on Twitter at Mosaic Comics, and I'll be back doing another one of these videos a month from now. So subscribe and hit the bell to make sure you're notified when that video drops. Until then, thank you for taking the time to watch. My name is Dan. We'll talk again soon.